Ethel Zoom.
All
Yes, I see
right.
it. Cool.
We are now recording. So, good evening. I am super excited to do this Zoom call with one of my favorite people named Michelle. Michelle
Yeah.
is a local professor in the Nashville area, has been in the music scene and the marketing scene, and just has some tremendous experience. And we won't talk about how many decades that Michelle and I have known each other. So, welcome to a
Thank
Zoom
you.
call. It seems like
Thank you.
that's what we do now.
Right.
Michelle has been really instrumental in encouraging me with my speaking and my color coding and all of that. And Michelle and I have had fun talking about her color. And I haven't done very much about this particular color, which are our yellows. So, just a quick review. Color code is a personality profile that was developed over 30 years ago, and there are 4 colors. Each one of those determines and speaks to your driving core motive. So, what makes color code unique is that you're born, we believe, with that driving core motive. And so, behavior becomes a reflection of what that motive is. And when I discovered color code a few years ago, I heard a speaker and I looked at my husband. I said, I'm a red, you're a white, and this explains everything. And Michelle has been so graceful in that she has listened to me talk about color code for a lot of years now. So the 4 colors, and then we're going to zone in on Michelle's color tonight because I think you're really going to enjoy it, as well as get some keys to how maybe people handle their motives and their behavior during times of stress. And we're all in a unique time of stress. Reds are motivated by power and action. I actually have a cuff, a leather cuff. I'm a red, and it says on it, because actions matter. That is what drives me, is action. Whites, I married a white, are your peacemakers. They're all about steady state. Their driving core motive is all about keeping peace in their life. Blues are all about connection. Uh, the term that's proper is intimacy. We tend to think about that from a physical perspective. Blues are all about connection. Blues hate small talk. Blues want control. So you might be identifying a little bit if you have some blue. My secondary color is blue. And then we have the yellows. So yellow, their driving core motive is fun. And I like to use the term in the moment. Yellows are in the moment. So when Michelle and I were talking about her color code a few years ago, Michelle, tell me a little bit about what made you, even though we hadn't fully explored the entire personality profile, what are some things that you said, oh yeah, I really identify with the yellow personality? And we'll draw that out a little bit.
Well, what I really appreciated is once I started working with you and that became apparent, even though I was in my 40s, it unlocked a whole nother area and it really did click. So I was so thankful for that. One of the reasons why it clicked is, there's a lot of talk these days about being careful that you appreciate who you are and keep shame out of your life. And if you are being labeled as fun, or if that's your core motive, you kind of start to have a little shame and think, well, am I just the one that doesn't have any responsibility? So being able to work with you and get that label and say, no, this is one of the 4 core motives, and there are positive aspects about it, was very freeing to me. And so I'm very grateful for that. And then it allows me then to continue working on what is my core motive instead of trying to change myself or trying to continue or saying, okay, now you're in your 40s, you need to do this. And, it's okay. I'm a yellow.
I love that you said that. So for me, I've always wondered in certain situations, why do I feel like a fish out of water? Because reds, we always think we're right. Bless our hearts. We are motivated by action. Somebody told me the other day, Kelley, you do aim, fire, ready. And when I am in my authentic self and I trust what I'm doing, what do we need to think about this for? Let's go. Now, for me, having a secondary blue, blues are very much about connection. They're very much about quality and perfection. When I'm in a place of insecurity, I tend to go to my secondary blue and not in the healthiest way. And that's when I become a perfectionist. I can get into analysis paralysis. What's really beautiful about the yellows is that's why I like to use the word in the moment. Yellows, you are one of the most optimistic, fun people that I've been around. Anytime I'm with you, I know I'm going to have a good time. Even if it's virtual like this, right? You're going to be friendly, you are extremely likable, and those are the traits of a yellow that I think are just an incredible gift, because yellows bring in that sunshine. We added to a group that I'm part of, there is now a yellow. And that yellow came into a sea of almost blue and white, a little bit of red, who was just twisting everybody up. And they brought the sunshine, they brought the fun. And there's a natural optimistic spirit with a yellow that makes it such a great add-in. I love that you brought out the responsibility piece. Believe it or not, and I think you know this because you've developed this for yourself instinctively, yellows do want a little bit of structure. Can you speak to that a little bit in your own world?
Yes, because I hate to say this, but don't try to tell us how to have fun.
That's right.
But that's kind of how it is.
Yeah.
We definitely do need structure, and fun should not indicate that we are irresponsible. Um, but it's more about the optimism, as you say, and then don't tell us how to have fun, or don't put baby in a corner, and don't leave us with no options.
Right.
Um, so if I am waiting in line and I need to be somewhere, I can entertain myself as a yellow, but if it looks like that it's really not an effective use of time, then yeah, I need a bit more structure than, hey, what's about to happen here? Nobody knows if your plane is late or something like that.
That's great. I know a young person who's a teenager, and a good bit of their life, even though they bring in that optimism and that fun, they're naturally affectionate. They also have a term that I hear them using sometimes. What is the plan? Because while they're good to go, they're good to roll, they still want a little bit of what is the plan. Now, some of that comes from a background of not necessarily knowing the plan, but yellows do want a little bit of structure. You brought something out, though, that's incredibly important. When we think about the four colors, red comes from a position of logic, and a red wants to control. Blue comes from a position of emotion and wants control. We flip that, white comes from a position of logic, and you cannot control them. Yellow comes from emotion, and they do not want to be controlled either. So a yellow really needs to be in a place where they feel like they have freedom within an incredibly loose structure. If I were to say to you, I have a workbook page for you to do, what's your immediate reaction to being given a workbook page?
Well, I hope it's not multiple choice because I'd rather it be essay.
Got it? And would you prefer to read something about information that you're interested in, or would you rather hear it?
Oh, that's a good one. Because I'm a professor, so I'm actually I do have to read, but I do a lot of audiobooks
Yes.
for pleasure.
Yes. It's interesting in that yellows are often visual learners. They like to watch, they want to see, and they also prefer to often listen. So where a blue wants to read the book, often a blue, let me hold the book and touch the book and smell the book. A yellow is often okay, give me the cliff notes, give me the quick version, let me hear it. Many years ago, you did something very interesting, which I thought was a tremendous insight into how well you run a business. And you had a very high profile client here in Nashville. You may not even remember doing this. And that client was old school. So because you were in meetings with this client and you weren't actually writing something down on a piece of paper, you really perceived that that client did not think you were taking their needs seriously. And so I remember you hired me, and you pay well, and you hired me to come into that meeting as your assistant, to be kind of the stenographer, to actually take the meeting notes. And that seemed to really change the trajectory of how you were being perceived, because you didn't need to take notes. You're brilliant. You were absorbing it via audio. You were taking it all in, completely synthesizing and conceptualizing it. But for that other person, they needed to see you writing notes. When you think about that with your teaching and your students now, are you aware of that with your students? Do you do things a little bit differently because of that? What are your thoughts? And do you even remember hiring me for that meeting?
Yes, yes. And I still tell my students the Kelley Way. I really do. Because at that point, that helped me understand. And I think one good thing about, your coaching as a color code certified coach is not only to celebrate the good sides of us, but to remind us some things to be careful of. And it's perfectly fine to say to a yellow, hey, yeah, I know you need to cliff notes, but guess what? Your client will be almost offended if you don't take notes.
Yeah.
And so, and I remember you saying that to me. I tell it to my students and I say, it doesn't matter if you're doodling. And there's an English professor in our department that will go to faculty meetings and will doodle just to keep himself away. But so knowing that with the color code and the coaching that you give, that you can't just burst out into the world as your color and go, y'all are going to have to accept me. Sorry, we're in the South, so I say y'all. Everyone accept me because Kelley told me who I am. Well, Kelley did. And then Kelley is also careful to say, and here are some other challenges that you have as a yellow or whichever color you are. And that's helpful too, so that you continue to have friends and family members love you.
I love that. My late father used to say to me, they named a street sign after you, One Way. It was not a compliment, I think, and he passed before we were ever able to do color code with him. But as I've talked with family members and I've talked with my husband said, your father was just like you were just like him. He really identified my personality because we were so similar. So you can imagine there was a lot of this. We knew exactly how to push each other's buttons. We knew exactly how to drive each other down the wrong road. But he also provided for me some really frank insights, in that I had to learn, often the hard way, that not everybody wants to hear my opinion. Not everybody else thinks I'm right. Oh dear, I may not be right, even though as a red, I do think I'm right. And that I have to be authentic, but also know when it's time to soften my approach. I was talking to a colleague today about some ideas that I had, and I'm ready to drive and I'm ready to go and da da da. And I said, what do you think? And I knew, because she's a blue, the words that were going to come out of her mouth were, I need to think about it. And a few years ago, even, that would have just flown in my face. What do you mean you need to think about it? We're good to go. We've got the information. We're ready to go. But what I've learned is that is exactly what that person needs to do. They need to think about it. A white needs a lot of space. I've been married 16 years, and what I have learned, again, the hard way, is that I need to let that person have space when there's something going on. They are not like a red where they just want to dig in their heels and battle it out. Their driving core motive is peace. So they're going to do everything they can to keep the peace and remain steady state. And if you've been around me long enough, you also know I said, don't get a white mad. It's not pretty. With a yellow, I'd love to talk a little bit in transition in our last few minutes together to how you naturally deal and what your natural inclinations are in a time of stress or in a time where you feel not as secure about your world as you normally would. A blue goes into uber, I'm going to control everything to the nth degree that I can control, and may also overanalyze and potentially procrastinate on everything. A white is going to pretty much keep a steady state and stay in balance. They're not going to typically go to extremes unless they've got a strong secondary. A red does different things depending on what's going on. Sometimes a red will seize control, or a red will just start taking actions for the sake of taking action because that's their driving core motive. What say you, yellow?
Well, it kind of sounds like you, Coach, are saying that the whites and the yellows are going to get us through this time of social distancing. And I would agree, because the first thing I thought of as a yellow was, I finally get to do the projects that I've been wanting to do, the fun stuff, the
The
fun
fun
stuff.
stuff.
Yes, some work, but I also consider, the yard work fun because it makes it prettier. So it was that need to have my own control and my independence as a yellow, that I could say, now no one can tell me where to go and what to do. I get this whole day to myself. And I've been doing my digital photo library, blah, blah, blah. So I, as a yellow, yes, and am content. I also know to be grateful that I still have a job, that I can get food, that I'm not sick, and those things, which yellows are great at being grateful, very good at being grateful. And then taking it to the next yellow level of, now how much fun can I have?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I am having tons of fun because I've had a list of things for the house and for um, pictures and all these kinds of things that I'm digging right into, and I'm very excited.
I love that. Yellows can create their fun, right? Yellows will figure out a way. Where a yellow does struggle during some of this is, oh, the weather's not pretty, so I can't get out. I can't get out and shoot the baskets. I can't get out and see my friends. And so yellows have had to kind of work their way around that interaction. I saw a meme the other day that said, check on your extrovert friends. They are not okay.
Right.
Because introverts are like, yes, it's always been too peoply out there and I'm good. Whereas a lot of times your yellows are there, get their energy from that interaction. Yellows love to be adored and liked. Yellows have that need. And so, how are they going to get it? How are they going to get that adoration and that attention? And remember, yellows are in the moment. So that is where, when it comes to times of stress, I have a couple of yellow friends that I'm really kind of thinking about, how can I pull them out during the time when they really are struggling with the ability to get some fun. Because what you don't want them to do, because yellows have that emotional side, is go to a place of sad, and they'll pull themselves out pretty quick. But you want to kind of help them think about, how can they find those areas where they draw energy. So for you, during this time when you are doing your classes online, you did some great fun Instagram videos. I saw one today where you were kind of talking about, this is not how you do your speech. And I thought, I cannot wait to see where she's going with this. What are some other things that you're doing to kind of bring that energy out when you're in a more isolated time?
Well, definitely things like that. So instead of just doing online class, I have told my students, go check my Snap whatever, because they know more about it than I
And
do.
you're doing TikTok. I am so not cool.
Yeah, trying to get into that too, to make it fun for them. Hopefully they have time for that. But also I know that something else that you and I discussed one time is we're good about letting ourselves have a fun break. So for every hour, like we had a bunch of written assignments today, and I will tomorrow to grade. So after about an hour of that, I'm allowed to look at TikTok videos of dogs, because that's what I consider fun. And it's just dogs, just fun videos of dogs.
Yep.
And then I go back to work. So as a yellow, as long as I know that I'm giving myself that break, than the things that are a little bit more laborious or tedious and not fun, I can get through.
I love that. And you're kind of taking charge even in an area where you don't have a ton of control. So I was talking to a young person the other day. I said, "You've got homework that needs to be done." And they were cracking me up because they were trying to figure out, how can I get control of the situation? And so they said to me, "Well, on Friday, it's Good Friday, and I'm doing nothing." And I'm thinking, this is 10 days away, right? And I said, "Okay, baby, you don't have to do anything on Good Friday." But it was their way of feeling like, no one's going to control me. I'm going to get a handle on these things. And at the end of the day, all of the things that we've talked about comes back into that whole emotional intelligence, right? That whole EQ that is so very important, particularly when you're thinking about your interpersonal relationships, when you're thinking about your business relationships. If you're in a setting where everyone is working remotely and they've never done it before, this is really critical information to know about that person. When I was on the phone with someone the other day, helping with them with something, I knew they were a blue. So I knew that they were struggling with, their monitor is not set up just exactly the way it was supposed to be because they're at home. And I took the moment, and I've got a little bit of tenure with this person, to say, can I offer you the thought that, is this where the best place for your focus? I get it. I get it. But are you hyper focusing on that versus something else that's a little more critical? And I find that for myself as well. Am I hyper focusing on being right about something? Or is it about coming to a mutual understanding and finding some commonality? And when we think about all of the pieces and parts of getting along well with others and achieving our goals and so on, having these insights about ourselves make an impact. I did a couple of sessions this year. We did a mindset reset, 2020 vision. What hue are you looking through? I did that in January. I revisited that a few weeks ago because guess what? What we envisioned for January, what we envisioned for 2020, I mean, I have no other words, right? Exactly. And so we did a spring, I did kind of a spring reset, and we went back and we revisited, how do these different colors learn? What's the best way for these colors to set goals and achieve them? And I talked about Carb Manager. Now, I've been joking that I've got the Carb Corona, Carb Middle Roll, because I haven't been as good. But for me, there was an app called Carb Manager. It was logical. It gave me immediate results. It gave me action. And it wasn't so detailed that I got caught in the minutia. I didn't count calories. I just did carbs. And that enabled me to lose 20 pounds. I know I have a long way to go, but boy, did I love that. And the projections were correct. It literally will do projections on, if you stay on this carb task based on what you're weighing in as, this is what you're going to weigh in a month. This is what you're going to weigh in 2 months. And
Oh,
it
wow.
worked. I actually did this before my husband and I went to Italy last summer because I didn't want to completely cry over every photograph I was in. So other people would say, "Oh no, I like Fitness Pal." I'm not advocating any of them. I love Carb Manager. Some people love Fitness Pal because you're putting in all the minutia, all the calories, and they go to the depths of putting in their macros and so on.
And their
Uh,
water. Yeah.
yeah, and your water. Everyone has a different personality, and so it affects how we even set our goals, and then what are the things that we need to do to achieve them. For some people, you give them a workbook and they are in heaven. And I need my 4 colored markers to go with that workbook. And I have some colored pens, and they're the gel kind, but not the other kind, because the gel, you get where I'm going. And a
Yes.
yellow is going to go, where's the workbook? What work? Yeah, I don't
Right.
got no, you know. And so all of these things really tie into so many facets of our life. Anything that you feel like has been missed in our conversation? I'm so grateful for you taking time to do this.
Oh, but and this has been fun as a yellow. The you brought up briefly coworkers, and so I want to encourage others to have the team session done, like I've seen you do. You did for our team. It really, I've got Amy, my good friend coworker. I believe it really changed how I'm able to interact with her, knowing that she's a blue.
Love that.
And it really helped because we've known each other, worked together now for 8 years. And here we all are now apart from our coworkers, and probably thankful for that in many ways. But this could be like a really good time to kind of learn about each other so that we can navigate this new communication and what happens when we get back together. And here, my coworker and I, we're both professors of communications, yet the color code really made a difference in how I learned to communicate with her as a yellow and she a blue.
I
Very,
love that.
and
Yeah.
thank God you helped me realize that my dad's a white because he's a widower. My mother has passed away. And this kept me from putting him in a VA home and locking the door and throwing away the key. So it's been very helpful to understand that, yes, a white, I'm just letting him be at 89.
Yeah, yeah. And at 89, boy, hasn't he earned it. I mean, as a veteran and the service that he's given our country and all of that, he's definitely earned that. And when you care about someone, I know that that was the thing that I remember about my late father is I look back now and I think about what we fought about, and I also think about the level of quality that he brought to my life. And because he was about taking action, there were life skills that he taught me, and those are things that are invaluable. And so when you think about coworkers, or if you think about parenting, or even in marriages, color code has been a game changer for my marriage, because there were some years where I thought, have I lost my mind? He probably thought the same thing. What am I doing with this crazy person? And when we take the time to be grown-ups and we look at this from the perspective of character, character counts, right? I can't just say I'm a red and you just have to deal with me. You said that earlier. Character counts. It makes a huge impact. And that's what I found was so relevant about the color code is you can apply it personally and professionally. My husband makes beautiful cabinets, and that's how we met. You know that. He built me an entertainment center, and I married him, right? So it was a heck of an entertainment center. But he also is not in the corporate officey world. And the fact that he gets color code and applies it, and he will think about, oh, that person is probably a such and such. He helped me identify before we ever got my mother to take the color code what my mother's color was. And he's
He-
like, oh, I already knew that. I already knew she was a white. Oh, okay. And a blue too? Yeah, you already knew all that. So it really does help you understand not only who that person is, but also, just like you said, how you can communicate. And at the end of the day, we are better together. I have a boss that talks about that's why they make different flavors of ice cream, because we all like different things, but we all come together. It's beautiful. And that's the other thing that I always try to distinguish with this is it doesn't mean that this color can't work with this color can't marry this color, or they can't be on a team together. When you understand each other's strengths and even limitations, it just makes for such a pretty tapestry for teamwork. So I'm really grateful that you brought out that about you and Amy. She is delightful, and you can tell she's all about quality and caring about people. And that is
yes,
such a profile for a blue. So,
yes, yes.
all
She
right.
textbook. Yes.
Yes, she is textbook. You are so right. You are so right. Well, I'm going to wrap us up and thank you again. So the website, if you want to check out some of the things that I'm up to, it's kellyknowles.net. We also have Kelley K Consulting Facebook group, and you can even find the Kelley K Consulting group on LinkedIn. I'm ever so grateful for all the support that Michelle has offered me over the years, and I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. All the best to all of you. See ya.
Have fun.